everybody. Thank you for coming to Aarohi's Dikshitar Day. We're super incredibly honored and blessed to have Dr. Kanniks Kannikeswaran sir with us today. It's a very special event, biggest event of the semester, and we'll go ahead and get started with Sir's film, which our amazing MC for today, Shreya Nayak, will be emceeing us through today. So I'll hand over the mic to her.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. If this is your first time here, we are Aarohi, Georgia Tech's community for the Pan-Indian classical arts. We host concerts, workshops, and jam sessions to celebrate the richness of Indian music and dance. Today, we are so delighted to celebrate Srimati Swami Dikshitar's 250th birth anniversary, honoring his life, music, and legacy. We'll begin this afternoon with the film Colonial Interlude, a captivating documentary exploring Dikshitar's life and his Indo-colonial compositions, the Nattaswara Sahityas. There will be a short Q&A following the screening, so feel free to note down your questions as we go. And now please sit back and enjoy this beautiful start to our celebration. I would like to invite Dr. Kanniks Kannikeswaran, renowned music scholar and Dikshitar expert, to take us on a journey through Dikshitar and India's sacred geography, highlighting his genius as an integrator and innovator. I would also like to invite Balaji Guntur sir on stage to facilitate the lecture session.
Thank you, Balaji. Thanks everyone, and hope you enjoyed the movie. And first of all, any questions about the film? Yes, please.
Where do we get a copy of this film?
It's not published on the internet yet. I wanted to screen it in as many venues as possible, because the impact is much more on a large screen. I'm really hoping for a screening in Chennai, and I've not been very lucky with it. I hope, at least just before the music season this year, if you're able to get one solid screening in Chennai, I'd like to put it out on the internet before the end of the year, because this is the 250th. At least we have time till March 15th, so that is the official end of the Tamil Varsham, or the Indian year. Yeah.
So, Dr. Kanniks,
yes.
Question on... Oh, thank you. Do we have any evidence if these Nattaswara Sahityas were composed in different periods of Dikshitar, or were they all composed when he was in Manali? I know you included Sahityas for Meenakshi and Kamala. Right. So is that our evidence that he actually composed them throughout his life?
There was nothing composed in Manali, that's for sure.
Okay.
Because in the words of Subbarama Dikshitar, his nephew and official biographer, the first composition of Dikshitar is only after he was blessed in Trittani by Murugan, Varasiva Balam. And then, of course, the Santatam Pahima is a tune of the British national anthem, and Anumari. So I was able to trace a good chunk of them. And see, the way the whole thing happened was, I've written about this in the book. See, my party used to play these, and I used to hear these in the temple on Tambuchetti Street. My party's father, that is my Kollu Tata, also used to play these. Kollu Tata had heard bands playing some of these tunes, and he used to play them on the fiddle. He never called it the violin. To him, it was always a fiddle. Although he never sat down on the floor and played. Oh, he used to sit on the... I mean, he was a British period guy. Okay. He passed in 1975. So he used to play it. So as a little child, I used to enjoy these tunes. Although it's always nice when two senior generations sit at home and play, you know. Then I started learning music, and I figured out that, okay, some of these have sahityams. Shakti Sahita Ganapatim, and party always called it Shakti Sahita, but they used to sing it as Gaga Gamaga. In their world, there was no sahityam. Kodadata never cared about sahityams. And then Vande Meenakshi, and all, no, Vande Meenakshi was not there yet, only Varasiva Balam and all that with this. So, as a little boy, you can imagine I was like 9 years old, wondering, okay, some of them have text, some of them don't. Some of them are known by my teacher, some of them are known by Kodadata, and some of them have commonality, some of them don't. So, Kutti mindla, just draw a Venn diagram, okay, union, intersection, abdi. That's when I figured, okay, there must be a larger set. About 1983, I watched a movie, Gandhi. For the first time in life, I heard God Save the King. So, oh my God, this is Santatam Pahimam. So for me, it was a reverse engineering, right? So I heard Santatam Pahimam first and then God Save the King later. Oh, then once I came to the US, I listened to the original tune of Vande Meenakshi, Rakes of Mallow. So that's when I figured out there's quite a bit. But then in 2001, there was a book published by T.K. Govindarao, which had all the Notiswara Sahitiyas notated in English. So I bought that book. One morning, tea kudichinde, I was going through this. Oh my God, I know this. Muchukunda Varada. Where did Muchukunda come from? Where did all that come from? Sir, Gaga Gari Gapa Mamaga. So that is like Muchukunda Varada Tyagaraja. According to party, it was Gaga Gari Gapa Mamaga Riri Sarimaga Gari. So, okay, all these are coming together. Okay, let's teach. Hey, wow. Then daughter comes. She was like 5 years old, 6 years old. Then she started singing. So kids started loving it. So started teaching it to other kids as well. See, the only way to start a music class is when you have a kid who wants to learn. And the only way to motivate her to learn is to have a bunch of other kids come. So mother they all started learning. It was so much fun. It was like a riot at home, literally. Anjaneyam Sadavahavayami. Okay, walk around the house and look at all the Anjaneyas around. How many Anjaneyas do you see? Panchavaktaram and all that comes in Anjaneya. Can you see a 5-faced Anjaneya? So every song was like a discovery for children. So then it occurred to me, okay, before they grow, we need to record this. So in the year 2007, I said, okay, let's go for a recording. So I needed accompaniments, and they sounded very Irish. So I approached some Irish musicians in the area and said, if I write the accompaniment, would you be able to play it? They said, sure, why not? Then they heard some of these tunes and they said, oh my God, these are our tunes. How do you know them? So to me, that was like a major aha moment. I mean, the word aha will not summarize it. It's like, oh my God, how is this even possible? And then one by one we started going through the Kamalas and Vandita. According to the older evidence that we have in India, brown manuscript, it is just referred to as some kind of a dance or a country dance or something like that. But this dulcimer player, she said, no, Kanniks, this is the gallop beat. Then she fishes out some old notation, she shows it to me. She's able to play it from the top of her head. So then that's when I said, okay, we're sitting on top of something. Let's get all these people together and record it. And that's how the whole thing happened. Then I took it to Swami Dayananda Saraswati, and he listened to it, and he was so open-minded. He said, yes, we need to release this. So we released it in the ashram, and then we released it again in Narada Gana Sabha in 2008, where he invited PSDB principal, Mrs. YGP. And then I had mentioned to Mrs. YGP that I was concerned about the tragic nature of what? The extremely tragic nature of the lyrics written to nursery rhymes. So London Bridge, what happens? What did you do? London falling down.
Humpty Dumpty.
Humpty Dumpty. Jack and Jill went to the hill and went down.
Rockabye baby.
Rockabye, So things like this. So why do you have to teach those? Why can't you teach something like this? This is the idea I came up with. And she said, Swamiji, she was talking to Swamiji sitting on stage. I still have the recording out on YouTube. She said, I think we'll start teaching these in PSPB. So it started, I don't know where it went. But what it drove in me was, okay, this can actually be a common set of songs for people across India, for children across India. There's nothing like that. So somebody was singing, My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean. Do you all know that song? Bonnie Lies Over the Sea. And Bonnie na another. So, I don't know. So when we sing all such songs, why don't we have a set of 100 songs that some kid studying in KV in Jabalpur should be able to sing along with another kid studying in KV in Assam. So these were ideas that came to my head and never materialized. I've written 100 songs. I'm waiting to find the right opportunity to get funding and get them recorded. So we'll wait. So I have 100 Geethams waiting to be recorded, but that's another story. But this is basically the story of the evolution of the Notiswara Sahitiyas, how we recorded them in 2008. It's a recording called Vismaya. And then one thing led to another, then this movie had to come. So now let's go to the book. I will share a visual of the book. Unless Kanniks are ready. Yeah.
I want to share one more.
Yeah.
Fascinating that you mentioned about Swamiji, right? He's so many people's lives, your life and all that.
Oh, definitely.
But
totally.
The variations of the Natuswara, my own grandmother who settled down in Halappi, she used to have this song in Malayalam. Kake kood every day. But this particular tune, the variation in Malayalam, ke kudevide kunjanakai yelneyappam.
No, so it goes on. Let me, I don't want to pull you down, but kake kudevide is the same tune as kaka mai konduva, kuruvi ten konduva. No, kuruvi edo konduvarum. Koke, something.
Poo konduva,
ten konduva, and something like that. So, but anyway, that's a local Indian tune. It's not a colonial, may have been based on a colonial tune, but it's not in this set.
Thanks for taking the time, coming and spending it with us today. Where I wanted to start, I think some of us are very curious, is to actually understand a little bit more of your journey with Dikshitar.
Yeah.
So I think you already started to talk about your grandparents playing and all that, but would love to hear more of how did Dikshitar happen in your musical journey.
Yeah. Thanks, Balaji. So the Notice for Us were probably my first introduction to Dikshitar, and I started learning music from Saraswati Ammal, who's a daughter of Kannikeswaran Ananda Krishna here, who was a direct disciple of Ambi Dikshitar. So Saraswati Ammal's brother lived in Calcutta. His name is Ambi Sir. Ambi Sir has touched the lives of a lot of people. Hundreds of students have learned from him. Same with Saraswati Ammal also, but she was not known as much as Ambi Sir. So they were a low-profile family, but I mean, they were just so giving. They just gave knowledge out. And so that's how I got it. My chittis used to learn Veena there. And so there was always something going on at home. Somebody playing the Veena, somebody learning a new song every day, bringing something back and all that. When I go to my party's house, my chitti will say, hey, Dave, now Kamala Manohil or Varna Kathindrukenda. Another chitti will come and say, this Hussein or Padam. So that's how my exposure was. There were no professional musicians in my family, only people that learned at this level. And I wanted to learn to sing. I was 9 years old and I said, I want to sing. So that's the keli. That was, no, I said, I want to learn. Then family was going on a vacation somewhere. I said, on vacation, I want to sit in my party's house, go to party class and learn. So that's how my interest was at that age. Kutti party solli tharuva. Then all this Sankaram, Abhirami, Manoharam and all that. In my party's house, I used to ask questions. என்னடா அது ஒரு தியாகராஜ கீர்த்தனை கிடையாது என்ன குட்டி குட்டியாக புதுசு புதுசாக இருக்கு அப்படின்னு ஸோ அதோட வேல்யூ எல்லாம் I'm getting to realize the value of this only after growing up, like Sri Kantimathim or even Shankaram Abhirami Manoharam, Sri Saraswati also small compositions, but they convey quite a lot. On the other hand, my family, most audiences, their ears are tuned by what I refer to as kacheri music. So Carnatic music is a much broader field of music. Kacheri is only a subset of this. So I'm sure you would agree with me. If you wanted to render 2 or 3 Kamalamba Navavaranams, the kacheri is not the right place for that. I think you should sit in front of a golu. You should sit in front of an altar. You should sit by yourself. These are for communicating with your deepest self. That is what I feel about these compositions. Totally. You're free to render them in kacheris. And suppose even singing a Dikshitar composition as a main piece in a kacheri actually does negative justice to a Dikshitar composition. Because Dikshitar compositions are complete in themselves. There's no need to touch them. There's no need to add sangatis. There's no need to embellish them with kalpanaswaras. There's no need. If you're doing an alabana for 45 minutes in front of the composition, it's only for your own virtuosity. It has nothing to do with Dikshitar. So if you want to honor Dikshitar, sing just the kritis plainly. That's what I would tell people. So over the years, the interest in Dikshitar was there. It was kind of dormant. But then it was only in the year 1993, as I've written in the book, that's when I became woke about Dikshitar, so to say. So this had to do with the trip to Thirukadayur. So I was so we went on a temple trip, and we're all NRIs, right? So we all go on temple trips, and you know how it is. We engage a car, go from one place. Hey, today I'm going here. I'm going to take a selfie there. Instagram, adi, there, photo, tali. So you go visit many different places, pack 6 temples into a day, and then, I mean, you know what? Our country is so great, and all that kind of stuff, you know. But so we also did that in 1993. But again, 1993, we were just talking to Lakshmi about something else. In that era, we had those dial phones, touch-tone phones were just coming into vogue, no voicemail, nothing. You had to remember, you used your brain for a lot of things. So when we traveled down south, we relied on my mother's knowledge of and hers was all taken from books, particularly a magazine called Bala Jyotika. So, because her thing was she was into astrology, and she said, the Koil Pona and the Pariharam, that, this, and all that. Basically, we wanted to visit the Navagraha temples. So, while going there, we suddenly saw my post that said Thirukadayur. So, Amma said, oh, Abhirami Koilda, we have to go there. Kodikirudhu Veil. And then I said, then everybody said, no, we don't want to go. I said, no, let us go. So, my only familiarity with Abhirami was from Abhirama Pattar's Abhirami Andadi and all that. So, I go there. Then big crowd and velila yana, people are old people celebrating with mala and all that. So it seemed like a Shashti Tripurti Sarabhishekam kind of a thing. Okay. Then I go in there, we're all hungry, the temple is crowded, and suddenly I realize it's not Abhirami, but it's Amrita Ghateshwara. Then, my God, I know that name, where it is, where is it from? Then mind voice goes, Shashidharam Amrita Ghateshwaram Bhajeham. The words are coming back. The Chinna vayasula paadna paattu. Shankha Visheka Gatram Satchidananda Matram Shankaram Abhirami Manohar. Oh, Abhirami is also there. Okay, so this must be the Abhirami and Amrita Ghateshwara temple. Then there's a form of Shiva killing Yama. Then there's a story of Markandeya and all that. So the priest is telling some story, but actually I'm looking at the iconography and getting everything. And suddenly the whole song comes back to me. That's when I realized, oh my God, this song was probably written here. Dikshitar must have walked through this space. And he must have ingested this information and he must have written it in that way so that when I learned it as a 11-year-old, all that my teacher told me was, this song is about health. If you sing it on a regular basis, you will maintain good health. Then I come to this temple, I see Shashti Tripurti being celebrated here. Then I see the story of, the well-known story of Markandeya enacted in the temple, and Yama Nigraha, Anugraham and all that stuff is there. Then the whole thing comes together. So health, old age, longevity, then Markandeya, Anugraham, and all that comes together, and then Dikshitar, Guru Guha, the whole old temple, the architecture, and everything like that. Oh, that's when I realized, okay, there's something more to it. So after coming back, I started looking at old books and figuring out where in the Koil and the Marina, what are the other temples that are like this. So one thing led to another, and then a deep involvement in Dikshitar's composition. So when I go to a kacheri, like for example, I've gone to somebody's kacheri a few years ago. So it was a long alapana of Shankaravarnam. Then I was waiting for Akshaya Linga Vivo. Then he started something else. So I didn't want the time. So it is like it has spoiled us to that extent because listening to Dikshitar Kriti is an experience. You're following the lyrics, you're listening to a story, something is being narrated, something of deep significance is out there. So that is how I got enrolled in that paradigm. And then I developed a website called TempleNet. I don't know if anyone in this room has seen it. It is, you must have seen it, essays on more than 1,000 temples from all over India. So all these things came hand in hand. And another thing about Dikshitar's compositions is that they are more understandable. When you listen to it, Tamil Maridani is mostly Sanskrit. I don't know if people will agree with me or not, but Shankaram, Abhirami, Manoharam, Shashidharam, Amrita, you are able to understand it because many of the words are already in our vocabulary. So they seem to make sense. So that is how the whole Dikshitar process started.
That's fantastic. Dikshitar is a big part of your life.
Yes.
It has obviously led to writing the book.
Yeah.
And we want to learn more about how this book came about. And before we get into the book and kind of walk us through your understanding of Dikshitar and how we should appreciate him and his kritis, how did this book come about? What were some of the things that you went through as part of writing this book?
Yeah, you saw the movie, right? The movie was one of the steps, definitely. So the Notiswara Sahityams were a story that I wanted to tell in film for a very long time. And that materialized finally after the pandemic in 2023. We started before the pandemic, but it actually came to life only in 2023. Then we've been showing it in a few places. And then 2023, when I went home, I showed this to my mother. Amma, she cannot go out or anything, so she was literally in bed, and I showed played it for her on a computer. And her thing was, oh, book. So I said, okay, whenever the time comes. And then only in 2024, it occurred to me, my mother passed away in November 2023. So 24 occurred, say, Amma book. And then also 2025 is the 250th year. So இப்போ ஆரம்பிச்சாதான் next year முடிக்க முடியும். So let's get started அப்படின்னு. Last year was full of concerts. We had a concert called Eagai in Chicago. I wrote a piece called Chitrahar Overture, which was performed in Cincinnati. But August, I said, okay, this is it. If I don't do it now, I will never do it. I started in August and finished the first manuscript by the end of in November and took it to the Arsha Vidya Gurukulam in Coimbatore. And there's a Sannidhi for Puja Swamiji. I just left the computer there and read out sections from it and all that kind of stuff. So that was in November. And the refinement process took such a long time. So, in short, that was the impetus for writing the book and getting it completed before the end of the 250th year of Dikshitar. And a lot of concepts came to life. For example, this cover. So, any reactions in the audience as to what the cover stands for? Apart from this was designed, I gave the concept to my daughter and she actually brought this to life. My younger daughter, Sukhi. Sorry?
The Sri Vidya.
The outer border kind of resembles the outermost layer of the Sri Chakra. Okay? And the star. It's not the Star of David. So, it's a Kritika. So it's a Kartika Nakshatram. It's a star of Murugan, basically. And what are the 6 symbols in there? What is the one on top?
Hamsa.
Yeah, Hamsa stands for what? Hamsa Dhwani, of course. Okay, what else? Hamsa Soham. What is that? The philosophy of Advaita.
Advaita.
Advaita philosophy is something that permeates all the compositions of Dikshitar. What's the one you see on next to, if you go clockwise? Durga. So that stands for Shakta Upasana. So Dikshitar was a Sri Vidya Upasaka, right? So it's out there. Next one? Temples. So he was an ardent visitor of temples. He was a tireless pilgrim. So he's also taken a lot of inspiration from the Devara, as you would see somewhere in the text of this cover. Devara is there, right? Somewhere is there. Devara is there. Yeah. Devara, the bottommost one. So that shows up in that picture. And what about the next one? What kind of a veena is it? Rudra veena. Yes. So that is a Drupad influence on his music. And the next one? Violin. That's a colonial music. The next one?
Raganga Ragam.
72 Raganga Ragas. Yes. 72 Raganga Ragas. So, the price of the book, the sale price of the book in India is 720 rupees. So, for every Raganga Raga is priced at 10 rupees. So, that's 720. So, that's how it goes. So, and from November I started refining it, and thank you Balaji for going through the manuscripts for the different versions, and I think it must have started as a 600-page book, finally ended as a 396-page book. It's about 400 pages. I can share with you the layout of the book, the contents and everything like that also. So that's the story of the evolution of the book.
It was an amazing journey for me. I learned so much about Dikshitar along the way. And what I want to actually request you, Kanniks, is, one thing that becomes very clear is Dikshitar is not just a composer.
Right.
He is a polymath, and there are facets to understanding him. And I think that's kind of what the cover depicts for me as well.
Yes.
So we would love for you to spend the rest of the time talking us through Dikshitar through the lens of your book, the way you have organized the book, and how should we actually understand and appreciate Dikshitar through that. And I'll leave the stage for you.
Yeah, the book is divided into 3 parts, book 1, 2 and 3. And that is, the first one sets a context. So prior to that is the prologue, which I call the Anubhuti, which is my own experience that shows how I discovered Dikshitar and how I went through with it on 3 fronts. One is the temple front, the other is a Hindustani front, and the other is a colonial interlude front. Then the context sets the context for Dikshitar. What is Carnatic music? What is a kacheri? And what is the content of the Carnatic repertoire? And how does Dikshitar fit into all this? What's the awareness of Dikshitar? What is the size of his repertoire? And so on and so forth. Then we get to Guru Guha Charita. So that's a life history of Dikshitar. The source of the history of Dikshitar is only 2 pages. That's written by his brother's adopted son. So how do you explain 2 pages in 55 through 119? So almost 65 pages. Everything is about context, right? So there's other biographies written during that period. How does Dikshitar's life relate to others? Who are the other people that lived around him? Who did he interact with? So there's a lot of context building that happens there, which gives you a complete picture in order to understand Dikshitar better. The next one is the repertoire. There's a detailed analysis of his repertoire. Where things were written, what the kritis mean, what's the breakdown of ragas, and all that kind of stuff. The next, the hardest part. That's the heaviest reading, the hermeneutics of Dikshitar's compositions. And that is where the first slide comes into the picture. The 6 influences on Dikshitar's music. The Raganga Ragas, notice the colonial music, the Hindustani tradition and all that kind of stuff. What kind of an influence do they have on his music? So it's a detailed analysis. For those Dikshitar buffs will get quite a lot out of it. And who is this book meant for? This book is meant for people who attend kacheris, listen to Dikshitar's music on YouTube, and for them to appreciate it better. And also to look at Dikshitar not just as a Carnatic composer, but also as a thought leader in Indian knowledge systems. Yes. And I'll come to that in just a bit. So all that will start appearing in the later chapters. So after the hermeneutics, we get into Guru Guha Dik Vijaya. So contextualizing his travels in terms of the history of Adi Shankara, Arunagirinathar, and a lot of others, even Ramanuja and all that. Then Shanmata. So when you listen to Lec-Dems on Dikshitar by other people, you frequently encounter the word Shanmata, the 6 religions, especially in the works of Adi Shankara. Those are basically, Adi Shankara is written in praise of Ganapati, Skanda, Shiva, Devi. He also acknowledges Surya, and finally, who's the 6th one? Vishnu, yeah. So there's an older tradition called Panchayatana temples, which feature 5 deities. So you would have Shiva in the center, then 4 deities in 4 corners: Ganesha, Surya, Devi, and Vishnu. So it's called the Panchayatana tradition. So what is the word closest to that people know? Huh? Panchayat, the TV show, right? Actually, Panchayatana, Ur Kudi Panchayat Pandradin is a phrase in Tamil. So basically, you need 5 people to listen to a case and deliver justice. It's like the Supreme Court bench of what? 9 justices? We have 9, right? Yeah. It's like that. But Shankara added the 6th one to it. And we refer to it as Shanmata, 6 religions. And Dikshitar follows that very much. And then we get into book, the last 2 chapters in book 2 are colonial interlude. That's a fairly large chapter on the Western tunes. And finally, we have Dikshitar and mysticism. There's so many stories about him creating rain and other miracles in his life. How do we look at them in terms of a rational outlook? And how do we look at it in terms of written accounts and all that? Then book 3, what do we learn from Dikshitar? So I use the word samashti here deliberately, but I don't use this word anywhere else. Typically, the Pallavi, Anupallavi compositions in Dikshitar, the Anupallavi is referred to as Samashti Charanam. But Dikshitar doesn't call it Samashti Charanam. So I said, okay, let's call the coming together of all of this as Samashti. So basically, what do we learn from Dikshitar's compositions and what lessons do they hold for us in the 21st century? So that's this chapter. Mangalam is a composition that I've written, which is, in a sense, is a summary of this book. I wrote this composition at the request of Balaji, and I'm going to request Sid and his brother to sing it. I've taught it to them over the last couple of weeks. And this is the Raga Malika and 15 ragas in praise of Dikshitar. And then finally, the last chapter is an epilogue, which talks about how we can memorialize Dikshitar and how important it is. So that's pretty much a layout of the book. I'm happy to read a few sections from it in order to illustrate a few points, but I'm going to need your support to do that. So there's 2 songs I would like you to sing with me, and you probably already know these songs. So the first one is Shyamale Meenakshi. Let's try this. How many of you know this? Most of you know it, right? Shyamale Meenakshi. Doesn't matter if you're off pitch or not, just sing. One, two, three, go. Shyamale Meenakshi, Sundareshwara Sakshi, Shankari Guru Samudraveshi Deva, Pamaramochani Pankajalochani, Padmasarvani Harilakshmi Virute, Shambhavi Shyamale Meenakshi, Sundareshwara Sakshi, Shankari Guru Samudraveshi Deva. And now, how many of you know Twinkle Twinkle Little Star? Okay? If you don't know, it doesn't matter. Just sing, okay? You'll know it. It'll come to you. And while you're singing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, I have Siddharth sing Shyamale Meenakshi.
Sundareshwara Sakshi, Shankari Guru Guha Samudvaveshi Deva, Aparamojani Pankajalochani, Padmasarvani Harilakshmi Virute, Shambhavi Shyamale Meenakshi, Sundareshwara Sakshi, Shankari Guru Samudraveshi Deva.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah? Or totally? Anyone, what's the connection between the two? The Twinkle Twinkle Little Star is a very old tune. A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, even A, B, C, D has 2 versions. One for India, one for here. L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. So that is our Indian version. So Q, R, S, T, U, V, that's the American version. So the American version gels more with Twinkle Twinkle and also with Shyamale Meenakshi. So what's the connection? Both Twinkle Twinkle is based on an old tune which originated in France, and Mozart composed a set of 12 variations on it. You can play them on the piano. Scores are available everywhere. So this is probably floating around in India, and this is Dikshitar's variation of this tune. So they can actually sing these together. The next one I want to get into is Santatam Pahima. Okay, and then I'm going to read a passage from the book which will actually give you the significance of the whole thing. And that's where I feel that unexplored essence of Dikshitar comes through. Okay, Santatam Pahimam Sangeeta Shyamale Sarvadhare, Santatam Pahimam Sangeeta Shyamale Sarvadhare, Janani Chintitartha Prade Chitrupini Shive, Shri Guru Guha Sevite Shiva Mohakare, Santatam Pahimam Sangeeta Shyamale Sarvadhare. Okay, we all know this. Let's reflect on the lyrics. So, Santatam Pahima, always protect me. Sangeeta Shyamale Sarvadhare. Aadhar is what? Something beyond Aadhar card, right? So, Aadhar is the basis of existence itself. So, let's just look into the significance of this. So this is based on the tune of God Save the King, which is the British national anthem. So if you put yourself in the shoes of Dikshitar and live in that time, so he was like, you can look at it in two ways. One is he's a mama from Tanjavur who created Carnatic music and sang Carnatic music, and he's clubbed along with the other two. He's one, we refer to him as one of the Trinity. Okay, so he is happily doing what he's doing, which is writing music, and then suddenly there are shiploads of people coming from another part of that little island that they all came from. So God Save the King. So what does Dikshitar do to that? He grabs that tune and he says, he retains the verb save. What is the equivalent of save in Santata Pahima? Pahi. Pahi. But what is the object to be saved? Is it the king? Sorry?
Culture.
Pahi, mom. What does mom mean? Me. Save me. So if we all sing, it's like we are imploring Devi to save us. Okay. So that is an outright act of Dikshitar, literally turning the British national anthem on its head. It was Pahi Mam, nothing to do with the king or the queen of an island, a little island from the Atlantic where the colonizers came. But we have to look at the rest of the lyrics of this composition to understand what's going on, and also to look at what the other people did with it. So, over the years, what people have done with God Save the King is, so here are some examples of what people have done. In 1882, a national anthem committee was set up to establish God Save the Queen as a national anthem in India. This was to be accomplished by engaging specific Indians to translate the anthem in various local languages. In Bombay, novelist, playwright and journalist Kabraji, the founder of Parsi Gayan Uttejak Mandali, had translated the anthem into Gujarati, and it had been sung on several occasions and as part of the Mandali Jalsas or programs. There is also a Marathi version of the song that is performed by 100 Marathi students during the coronation of King George in Bombay. And this was done by none other than Pandit Vishnu Digambar Paluskar. It was also translated into Arabic and Persian. And then Raja's Sir S.M. Tagore, a musicologist from Bombay, was commissioned to set Indian translations of the anthem to Indian tunes. So people did quite a lot with it. So, and the praise for the king from the Indian elite was not uncommon, especially when the Darbar of the king happened in 1911. So prominent southern composers have written in praise of King George. And then here's another set of words that were written by A. Vagekara in the early 1900s, outright in praise of Hindu Deshadipa Jarji Nama, George, on the tune of Santatam Pahima. So if you compare this and that, what we see is God Save the King becomes always protect me. So there's almost like a wicked sense of humor in this lyrical framing where the theme of saving is retained. The subject to be saved is a devotee, and not the king of small island. And yes, the prayer is directed to the Saguna Brahman in the form of the Savior Devi, the mother, the divine feminine Shamala, and Dikshitar addresses her as Sangeeta Shamala. So there's a lot of context behind using the word, invoking Shamala in this and Sangeeta Shamala. Then she is Chintitartha Prada, and she is Sarvadhara, as mentioned in the Lalita Sahasranama. And then the crowning phrase in the whole thing is Chid Rupini. Chid is what? It's part of Satchidananda. In the Advaitic reality, the absolute existence, the Parabrahman, is nothing other than Sat Chid Ananda. So Chid is consciousness, Sat is truth, Ananda is the infinity of existence of bliss. So Chidrupam, the word Chidrupani comes in another famous song, a bunch of songs, but what's probably the most famous one?
Amritavarshini.
Amritavarshini, yeah. Shri Guru Guha Janani Chidrupini. So Chidrupini is invoked in this composition. So the prayer to Devi in this true Advaita Vedantic spirit thus stands out in total contrast to the various other royal anthems inspired or given by God Save the King all over the world. One is stunned by the content and spirit of Dikshitar's Santatam Pahima. the earliest of the Indian responses to a colonial tune. In today's world, where this tune remains as a vestige of the colonial era and one that represents the former power of a colonizer, Dikshitar's unique Sagunopasana, framed on the very same tune in the dark days of the early colonial era, audaciously stands out as one of the earliest expressions of indigenous cultural assertion and one of the foremost voices of decoloniality.